Welcome to Noobscast, the podcast where two lifelong gamers discuss video game adjacent media. I'm Chris Regan and I'm joined by my brother Pete. In this first season we're talking about the 90s TV series ReBoot, which was a kids TV series set inside a computer system. Pete's seen the whole thing, I haven't. Each episode of ReBoot featured the characters playing a video game, so as well as discussing the episode itself, we'll also use the games featured in the episode to talk about our video game memories. If you enjoyed the episode, please do follow us on whichever platform you're listening on and also consider leaving us a review. What is a mainframe?
A mainframe is the central data repository or hub in a corporation's data processing center,
Right.
linked to users through less powerful devices such as workstations or terminals.
Right. So ReBoot. What year are we? 90.
Cast your minds back to September 10th, 1994.
I have various questions that I'm going to ask that I should know. Had Toy Story come out?
I think Toy Story was also 1994.
Oh, was 1994 the good year? Because it's like The Crow, Toy Story, Trainspotting.
Toy Story is 95.
So I have so many questions. Anyway, so
cast your minds back to 1994, where CGI didn't exist.
CGI didn't exist apart from in video games. Like the closest, I think that was why it was cool at the time, or seemed so cool at the time, is because the only other place we'd seen stuff like that. Yes, you did have the early Pixar shorts that were out, the lamp and stuff.
The lamp, yeah.
Snowman.
Tin Toy,
Knick Knack, yeah. All that, they were around and on TV and stuff. So it was possible, and Tron existed, of course.
Tron, last Starfighter.
Starfighter. So computer graphics and obviously, I guess films probably had started using them at that point. I don't want to get into that. Obviously, aside from Tron, but for me, it was the only real comparable thing was cutscenes in video games, and I always used to like cutscenes in video games. In this era where it was like it wasn't in-game graphics, they would be either full motion video,
FMV, yeah.
FMV, or they would be like computer animated. I guess like a typical example, and probably the years aren't going to match up, but let's say just for argument's sake, like Final Fantasy VII had in-game graphics, but then it would have cutscenes that were computer animation.
Well, even then, because I think I've got to date it now, because that's 90. I'm on a info dump because that's 97.
Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the only example I could think of a game.
It's like early PC. I'm going Rise of the Robots.
Yes, that's Rise of the Robots. That's what you want. Rise of the Robots, a famously terrible game, but that had amazing graphics for its time.
Came out in Europe in 1994. So that's exactly where we're going.
Yeah, and it was like video game intros. Like, what was that one where you went with the Rick Wakeman soundtrack? Microcosm.
I don't know. Like Microcosm is a game. Is it actually Rick Wakeman on the soundtrack?
I think so. Anyway, I'm going off way tangential here, but like the CD-ROM games, because you have CD-ROMs where suddenly you can fit so much space onto a game, because you've got all this, you can fit so much more in because you've got space, so you can have a Rick Wakeman soundtrack, but then you could also have like FMV, so you have these like video cutscenes, but then you had computer graphic cutscenes. I just wish I could think of more examples. The game Hell, which is one of my favorite games, that had
Bureau
13. I mean, I still think we're kind of mid-90s. What's like
where do you want to get to?
I don't know. I want to get to pre-1994 to show that I know what I'm talking about.
But then you're dealing with if you're going down the history of video games, you're in your 2D Mega Drive stuff, SNES. So there wasn't really much. Like, I think mid-90s is when it did all kick off, I think.
There must be one that we played that I'm thinking of apart from Microcosm.
Like Star Fox is probably the first one.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Star Fox is also 93. So
I think it was just around this time.
I think it was all happening because the Pixar Tin Toy stuff, that was all like mid to late 80s. And I know we've gone massively off track, but ReBoot apparently was first concept and planning and things started in the early 80s.
Oh, okay.
So I
That
think
makes sense.
there was just a load of computer people in the 80s were sort of thinking, what's the next step in?
Yeah.
What can you do with a computer?
I mean, the thing is, to me, it still looks good because I don't know how computer animation works. So to me, it still looks okay. But like, I'm sure that if you're used to watching like Pixar films or whatever, or just like you look at it now, you'd be like, "Oh, that's terrible animation." But it's at the time, it seemed really impressive.
It did. I still think it holds up in the sense that because it's set inside a computer, that's a key
Yes.
point. It's set inside a computer for those that don't know. But because it's set inside a computer, you can get away with things being shiny. And I think, and there's a whole making of that I started watching and haven't got through.
I should probably watch that. But I want to get to the end first. What the part of the thing with this is I don't want to ruin it for myself because I never watched them all. You probably did.
I have.
Yes. I have sporadic memories. I've seen some later ones and I've seen some early ones, but it was in the era of TV where if it was on and you happened to be there, you would watch it.
In the olden days.
In the olden days, I don't think I was there for every single episode of ReBoot. I mean, I was 14 in 94, so...
I was. I don't know if I watched them all. I didn't watch them all at the time because they stopped showing them.
Yeah, I don't think they showed... Yeah, they probably...
But I do remember it. I think my brain was at, what was I? I would have been 12. And I think I was probably at the right age. I was probably a bit old, but I was the right age because I like cartoons. I won't spoil it in case we carry on and end up doing a review of reboots every week. But I know that the story gets quite good for an impressionable child. It was probably like first experience of having drama and tension.
This is the thing. I always had the impression that it was quite good, and there was more to the story because it starts off, and I'll get into this in a minute, but it starts off with like quite a ambitious plot, which I imagine develops, and so I am curious to see how it evolves. My sort of idea, if we carry, it depends how this goes, and if we carry on doing. But my idea is to maybe like alternate seasons, so we don't just do just a reboot podcast, but like that eventually we will have covered all of ReBoot. But I do think watching the first episode that there's sort of enough going on to like just talk about an episode at a time.
Yeah, which is interesting as well watching it because I've not seen it for a while. I think I would have rewatched them at some point, but I've not seen it for a while. And it's interesting knowing where it goes because I think the first season is very much, despite starting with a lot of lore, is very Monster of the Week. Let's just or more accurately, it's Game of the Week. What game is dropping? Yeah. Let's go have, because that's kind of the concept. Is do we need to explain, Robert? Do people know?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's quite complicated.
In a nutshell, it's essentially set inside a computer.
Yeah.
There's an unknown user who obviously owns the person whose computer it is.
So it's a bit like Tron.
So it's a bit like Tron if Jeff Bridges never goes into the computer.
Yeah. But they talk about the user a lot. I guess that was...
Yeah. And it's weird because... I'll get into that, why it's weird. So essentially, you're inside a computer and you've got the inhabitants and the people that live there who keep the computer running. And then they've got Bob, who's the guardian, who is visited from the web. And he's essentially a virus protector person who's helping protect the computer.
Is he a virus? Is that a spoiler?
No, he's a guardian, so he protects.
Yeah,
Megabyte is the virus, so he's protecting him from Megabyte. And then the concept gets a bit weird because then the user could input games, or download games that Bob and friends have to play.
And if they lose, then...
Well, this is when it gets weird. If they lose, it sort of destroys the computer.
Yes. So the mainframe's a city, but presumably also is a mainframe.
Yeah.
And the game comes in. Bob has to get to the game as soon as it comes in so he can play it and his friends. What's the kid called? Dot is the lady. What's the
Dot
kid called?
matrix, which
Dot Matrix.
took me ages to
God,
work
that's
out.
an old.
Oh, it's
That's
like a printer.
Yeah, God, no one knows about that anymore.
The kid is called Enzo. I don't know enough about computers to know what an Enzo is.
No.
On the one hand, like because I was always thinking, is it because he downloads games, and because it's like downloading games off the internet, so you're downloading viruses, but it's not, because then in later episodes you sort of see the user in the games.
Oh,
Not like
spoiler.
but like controlling the character, the
Yes.
player character. So then it is this weird thing of if the user wins, he destroys his own computer.
Yeah.
But then it must be annoying to download a load of games and never win any games.
That's
Never,
what I was thinking.
never
Yeah.
complete a
Like,
game.
I mean, games did used to be harder. Like, especially in the 80s, games were more difficult.
That's true.
And you could, like, games on the Spectrum, most of them I would just never complete. So, yeah, you could imagine that maybe that is the case. But I did think this must be frustrating for the user. But only because that's the premise of the show, though. Because if, like, Bob obviously has to win a lot of these games, otherwise there'd be no mainframe left, and that would be bad. It's a good premise, though, in terms of each week there will be a different game. And I do think that's, even now, that's like watching it now, I'm like, oh, I wonder what games I'll have. So in this first episode, I mean, it's very complicated how they get to the game, which maybe we'll get into. But the first game it's like a space shooter game.
Well, that's what's sort of weird about this is you're also dropping all the lore that Megabyte. There's a tear.
Oh God, that's so complicated.
There's a tear in the city, which means if you stabilize it, you can create a portal to the
To the
internet,
supercomputer.
which I think is just like an internet portal.
Just yeah, okay.
I don't know.
I mean, some of this, like maybe like, because I think the way they used to write kids shows is that they would, quite often you didn't get like a full on origin. They were written to be able to, that you sort of could drop in anywhere at any point.
Yeah.
So like there is an indication that Bob's not been around for long in this world, but then he has got friends and he's sort of, they seem to know him quite well. So, and then I guess then you bring in Megabyte, who is a virus, but he's kind of like, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, he's the villain. He looks very villainous. But he wants to use Bob to exploit this tear in the mainframe or whatever, which is separate from the game. But this is a tear that's opened, and he wants to manipulate Bob, because Bob's got web powers, I guess, to turn it into a portal so he can get out, and he's got an army of little robot people ready to go out into the supercomputer or the internet or wherever. That's sort of it, right? And then
because it's essentially, it's an old rubbish computer. That's why the games keep getting lost, because everyone's rubbish. It's an old 486,
right,
and he's somehow got a free copy of Bob on the cover of PC Format. And it's far too good technology, but on this old knackered PC, there's this horrible virus. So the series concept is that the virus is trying to get to the web in order to infect
the whole world. And in the episode, so this is where it gets confusing. So Bob sort of stabilizes the tear.
Only at this point does it get confusing.
Well, I got confused. There was a lot of confusing. There's a whole bit where he goes to see Fong, which again we'll get into later. But another time maybe. And Fong says you need to use your friends, then he sort of just goes on his own, but his friends help. There's a whole like friendship thing going on, that's fine. But he stabilizes the tear, but then that doesn't, I don't know, it carries on. Because then the game drops in and Mainframe's like, oh, I didn't need you anyway, because look, now there's a game. And the game lands on the tear. So then they go into the game, which is this sort of space shooter, and they're like, and this is Bob and Dot, and they're like, well, we've got to get to level 3 because that's where the tear is. But then Megabyte infects the user's player, right?
Yes, because technically he's part of the computer, so he should be on the computer's side.
Yes, but instead he infects the user's player, so he's playing as the user, and he's racing ahead to get to level 3 to get through the tear, and Bob has to get there first, and that's essentially the whole thing. That's a lot.
It's a lot. It's very much you just get told what's going on.
Yes.
And you just have to go, yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose Tron is similar, but I guess because Tron you start in the real world, you've got some concept. Because the world of Tron, in the computer world, is weird and doesn't make much sense. But
Yeah.
I guess because you start in the real world, you've got Jeff Bridges, so you know who he is and that he's a user, and you see him getting scanned in. I mean, we haven't got a Jeff Bridges in this necessarily, and I think that's the thing. It's all like these abstract concepts that are running around.
Yeah.
And you can't overthink it, which you're probably not supposed to do because it's for kids. I was like, why is there a diner?
Probably
I guess it's like a
means.
city.
Well, this is it. Well, that's when real world has to come in. So they need a job, and
Yeah.
they sell energy shakes.
Because it's kind of like a gangster
Potentially.
story. It's kind of like Roadhouse. because Megabyte is like roughing up the diner to try and get Bob to help him. He's like, I'm going to hurt your friend. So he keeps like sending what is Hack and Slash, his robot
Yep.
people, to smash up the diner so that Bob will help him. And which is like classic gangster movie or vigilante, I guess, type plot. Or, one of those action. I mean, classic action movie plot, like Jean-Claude Van Damme, for example, is in a town and there's like a woman who runs a diner and the bad guy smashes it up. So then he has to go into a game. I don't know. But yeah, like that basic plot makes sense. It just gets very complicated with the tears and the portals. So the game reminded me. See, I was gonna, and I might do this in future episodes. I was gonna do like retro game recommendation based on, particularly on ReBoot, like based on what the game they played is, or just try and work out what the game there's two bits. But it reminded me of. Do you remember the game Iridium?
No.
That's it then. It was like a top-down space shooter, so it wasn't like you had like R-Type and stuff, which was sideways shooters, and Iridium was like top-down. But what reminded me of it is you had
I
a lot
vaguely
of
remember
like
the picture.
it was on the Spectrum, and I think Commodore 64.
I'll look at
had
Iridium 2 on the Amiga.
It had like it was top down, and what reminded me of it was in
Oh, yeah,
ReBoot
but
they start on that carrier ship. What are they called? Aircraft carriers.
aircraft carriers. Yep.
Yeah, you start one of those, but in space, and Iridium had a lot of those, like that you used to fly over and had to shoot the guns and things. And then later it reminded me of what's that Star Wars game that's good? Rebel Assault.
Rebel Assault. See, I
When
was
they were
going to go
going into
Rogue
the
Squadron,
cave.
but that's later.
Yeah, when they're going into cave, it looks a bit Rebel Assault. So those are my two reference points.
But I think, but then again, and I think this is probably part of the concept. I think not to get into how you write stories, but there's obviously the A plot and the B plot. So there's like part of it is let's have a story that's going on in Mainframe, but then it's like, well, what also? I think the fun of it is also what games can you put in.
Yeah,
like I know there's like RPG knockoffs and
okay,
sports games and things.
Yeah.
What was my point? Yeah. So and then there's also not so much in this episode, but like they get quite carried away with references later on in later seasons.
Okay.
Like they'll just blatantly. I don't think they blatantly rip stuff off, but they're quite good at just referencing things. And so I think had this been later on, it's clearly a nod to sort of old Star Wars games, like the old arcade cabinets and stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
It's just that later on they would have said this is Star Wars. What was interesting, and I found interesting, and then ultimately disappointing, is there was a ReBoot game on the PlayStation.
Oh, was there?
That I remember getting and thinking how it would be amazing because you then have to go into these games, and play games, and what an excellent idea for a game that would be. And you don't. You're just Bob flying around closing tears.
I think I sort of remember. Was this PS1?
Yeah.
Because PS1 was the era of like it would. I think.
Let's make anything.
Yeah, and there were those that would just license everything and just make a fairly cheap game as if off the back of a license. But I think because I don't think anything's ever done that. There's a game based on Bedlam. There's a game called Bedlam, Christopher Brookmeyer, which is a book, like an adult book about game developer who gets sucked into video games. Essentially, it's like Tron, but And he goes through all different games, and there's a video game based on it. And I think the game's actually supposed to be a sequel.
Is that game quite recent?
It's PS4, PS3 maybe even. I played it recently. I played it last year, I think. And it's quite cool because the game is very retro, so it's kind of like Doom style graphics. And it has got this really good Pac-Man bit where you kind of don't realize you're in Pac-Man until you kind of just going around this maze and you look up and you see it. Oh, I'm in Pac-Man. That bit's really cool. And it's the only example I can think of that even goes there, but they don't sort of make use of that. Oh, you could go into all different types of games. Like you could be a racing game 1 minute, or then I think it is a good concept for a video game, but I don't think anyone has ever done anything, because I understand why. But it reminds me, again, not to get too tangential, but remember like the ocean games, like Batman. I remember Ocean used to sort of, I don't even know if they developed them or did they just port them, but you had like Batman and Untouchables.
Oh, yeah.
But quite often they'd have different sections, like Batman, the movie. This is based on the 1989 Batman movie. It had like a walking around bit, which was the main game, really. This sort of platformy walking around, throwing batarangs at people. But then it had a driving section. It had and different ports had different. They were all kind of did the driving differently. Like I think the Spectrum, the driving one wasn't great, but the Amiga it was quite good. But yeah, you had like driving, and then you had a Batwing bit, and then there was like a puzzle bit and one bit. RoboCop had puzzle bits and shooty bits. Untouchables I remember really well because that had like again like a platformy bit and then a shooty bit. But I guess those games had like wildly different sections, whereas it feels like these days I understand why they spend so much time on the game engine, and you're like, right, this is this type of game now. There'd be the idea of developing all different types of game engines for all the different games inside the game of ReBoot would be.
But it is sort of interesting that to change the discussion about the state of games, because saying all that and that they don't do it and they can't do a high concept such as ReBoot, but then you realize how little they do that, because every time you can get in a car on a game, I get quite excited.
Yeah.
As in, if you're playing a first-person shooter and then you can get in a car and drive around.
Yes, yeah.
Like, it sounds daft. I remember on the first Halo and being quite excited that you could get in the Jeeps.
Yeah.
And it's like, now I'm driving a Jeep.
Do you remember a game on the Amiga called, I think it was called Hunter?
Yes.
It was really good.
I do remember that one. That one had lots of cars you could get into. I can't remember what the point of the game was, though.
You had to go and kill someone and then take his head somewhere. It was like, I think you were like a mercenary.
That is not the game I remember.
I think I vaguely remember, I'm sure it had like a Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia type subplot where you had to carry this head somewhere. Maybe I'm mixing it up with the film there. But I think what's interesting about that was, again, it was quite old. I mean, that must be or early 90s, probably early 90s, isn't it?
It's probably early 90s.
I'm going to Google it. 1991. So the thing about like why I think about that a lot is because it was one of the first like sandbox games. You had this island or the series of islands. You could go absolutely anywhere using vehicles. Like there was a hovercraft, and I can't remember what the vehicles. There was a hovercraft. I remember that. I guess there were cars and helicopters and stuff. But yeah, the earliest version of it, I guess, was combining the having a running around bit and a driving bit as two separate things. One of the things that annoys me about all the two different Fast and Furious games they've made is that they didn't have a running around bit, because that's a different topic. But like, I do think when you just go, oh yeah, this is just a car game, it's so hard to tell a story when it's just people driving around in cars, and you think you need a bit of running around and doing stuff. But yeah, I guess ultimately where you get to with that in a kind of free open environment is you just get to GTA, because then that's that. And I suppose that does have mini games and stuff.
But I think it's how you use it. Like I remember when, is it Tomb Raider Legend, where they had the motorbike levels.
Oh, I've forgotten.
And there was like random levels between the running around bits, and then you'd be riding a motorbike.
I can't remember that at all,
for some reason.
Maybe I need to play that again.
And it's like old arcade games, like Sunset Riders. You'll have the shooty bits, and then you'd have a level where you're riding a horse.
Yeah. So I could see like a ReBoot game where it was like open. I mean, obviously this is never going to happen now. But
Yeah.
I can see like an open world, like the idea of a reboot game where it's just sandbox. Here's mainframe. Oh, there's a game coming. You have to race to the game. That'd be really cool, actually, because then you'd have to like beat the game or the city gets destroyed, and you could that could be an ongoing thing. Why did they never make that game? Well, they did, but why did they not make that game good? I understand why, really. Because they were probably
Because of
given
games.
sort of £5 to do it, and they're like, right, okay, I guess we've got 3 weeks to get this out. So
That's the also because I also find it interesting. Like despite how quickly this stuff has developed over the years, like if you look at the games that were coming out in '94, none of them look like ReBoot because you can't. That's all pre-rendered and animated and
yes,
stuff. They weren't
yeah,
at the
that's a
point
good
where you
point.
could have playable games, so it's still a point where you still couldn't do it. And only
Mm.
now could you probably get away. Like I guess the closest thing is Arcade Paradise in the
Yes,
sense
that's true.
where
Yeah.
you're running an arcade and the games within the arcade are fully completable games.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah, and that does make sense. Yeah, and I suppose by extension, you have things like Yakuza. You can play arcade games and stuff.
Yeah,
And
like
um,
Gotham Knights, you can play Spy Hunter.
I mean, that's cool.
So maybe they can do it. Maybe that's what we've just decided that.
I think they can do it, but I don't think they would do it. Like, I think this is what's interesting about Reboot, and why I think it's worth talking about is because
Only we
it's so,
care.
well, but it's sort of its time in that seemed. I mean, this is partly this whole podcast is about because Noobs is about obviously going into get like. And this is where I've been thinking about this is if you would do a Noobs game, it would have to be like that, like going to different games. There've been so many things like this where they've like there's obviously an idea that keeps coming up again and again, this idea of sort of going into video games, and I guess a way of kind of turning the experience of a video game player into a bigger narrative. Like Bob is really just someone who just plays loads of games. But like
That is true.
here's a way to give him a character and an arc and to make that feel important, because when you do it in real life you just get that film The Wizards with Fred Savage.
So with the Nintendo Power Glove,
Yeah. I keep meaning to watch that again.
we'll watch it with this.
Yes, and we should. Yes, yeah. But yeah, I mean that's the thing. I want to try and cover some films as well, and yes, I think I might have covered. Did we mention it's Canadian?
Well, so this is the thing that I didn't realize when I started watching the making of that I haven't finished, because the making of is like it's sort of 20-minute, 30-minute episodes, but there's about 5 or 6 plus episodes on
Oh,
YouTube.
right. I think I'll definitely save that for the end. I don't know. Would it be just annoying every week where I'm like, I wonder why they did this, and then people are like, "There's a making of."
Well, no, but I've only I've watched a couple of them. I've only got as far as them making the series. Like it doesn't go into depth of why
The
they
story.
chose this stuff. They were just like we made a character and we called him Bob.
Yes.
But what was
Yeah.
interesting is it's 4 guys from the UK
Oh,
who were all
okay. That is
just
interesting.
they'd all just finished. Like it was like, and I'm
I didn't
massively
know that.
paraphrasing what I've seen,
Yeah.
and but it's like there were 4 guys who either just knew. Because if you read about history of computer games and you sort of realize that it's just one day someone who worked in an office and was making spreadsheets on really old computers suddenly worked out how to program a game on it on Excel
Yeah.
or something. And then that's all it's just these pockets of people who just wake
Yeah.
up one day and go, "Oh, I bet you could do this."
Yeah.
And it seemed to be that that's all they were. They were just these 4. Like, they weren't 4 guys like they all knew each other straight away, but they were sort of in the right place, understood computers, were getting in. I think at that point it was all like creating. It was sort of advertising, and that's all people wanted computers for.
Yes.
And then one of them was like, "Well, if I stay late, I'm going to do something else." And then all of a sudden, they were like, "Oh, we've got this idea," and then they sort of. It is interesting because it was sort of they built up this sort of. I think they were just when they were making the first shows, they were just in a hotel room
Oh,
Like,
okay.
they didn't have office space. They just sort of paid for these hotel rooms and just set computers up in them, and that was their
Right.
studio. And then they just sent out for people that, can you do 3D modeling? Cool, you're now an animator.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of love that. It's like I read the book about Masters of Doom, about the people who made Doom, and like just the beginning bit is the best bit because it's when they're making like Commander Keen and stuff, and they're just sort of experimenting. It's mostly John Carmack who's just sort of who's the main sort of coder, but like it's all kind of bodged together. Like it's like you look at Wolfenstein and he found out this way because basically it's not 3D. It just sort of looks. He's just like tricking you to think you're walking through a 3D environment, and that's why. And they couldn't have. And the book goes into all the technical details, but like you couldn't have floors and ceilings in Wolfenstein. So Wolfenstein, there's no floor
Yeah,
or ceiling. It's just like the blocks. And then in Doom, he kind of figured out how to get floors and ceilings, and you kind of develops from there until you get to Quake, and then obviously other people are doing their own things. But I love that when the early times where it's similar to that, where they're just sort of sitting around making stuff up as they go
well,
along.
it's like Tron. It's like I always found it fascinating in Last Starfighter, like all the space battles in Last Starfighter.
Hmm.
And I don't know if this is true, but I'm sure I read it or watched it on something. But when they were doing that, because it was so early, there was no visual. It wasn't like today where you can model it on a computer and see
Yeah,
what you're doing. It was like you put in your numbers, press enter, it builds a spaceship. Oh, that
yeah,
wing looks rubbish. Let's change that number. And it's all just like
hmm,
pure coding. And that I find that fascinating that,
yes,
like, yes, it's only a small section of the film. Like in Star Wars, it was all models.
yeah,
Cool, fair enough. But in Last Starfighter, you've actually got its first CGI,
yeah,
but it's all done blind, and they just have to hope for the best. That
yeah. Yeah, no, Tron was the same. With
yeah,
Tron, they didn't know, they never knew what it was going to look like. I think Tron, the fact that it has such a kind of unified vision overall, because obviously there's pure CGI bits, but then a lot of it is people in funny costumes on like matte paintings and things. But they make all that work together.
yeah,
But despite, yeah, again, having no idea how any of this is going to look, they'd done tests obviously, but like didn't really know how any of it was going to
yeah,
look until they get the stuff back, and then you're putting it onto film as well. Like you're putting it onto, like, now everything's digital anyway, so it all makes sense.
yeah.
But like you're getting this digital image and putting it onto film and then cutting it together. It's just kind of amazing that was a process that existed.
I need to find out
Yeah.
what that's called because I've referenced it a lot. Reboot Rewind. It's called. Season 1, Episode 1 is 54 minutes. It's on the TELUS Story Hive YouTube channel. TELUS. TELUS proudly
Okay.
supports local production and independent voices from communities we serve. And that's what's sort of weird. It's like this weird independent YouTube channel that has got this really in-depth and comprehensive reboot making of.
That's cool. I think I probably will have to watch that.
I
I'm just
can't
worried
even.
about it doing plot spoilers.
Yes, no, I think we probably need to get in.
Yeah, I'm trying. Like I'm approaching this as if I'm like watching The Wire for the first time and reacting in real time.
See how
So,
many. Yeah, there's currently 8 episodes of Reboot Rewind, and they're all
okay,
half an
is
hour
it?
to 50 minutes.
When were they uploaded? Like, is it still going on, or is it?
2 months ago.
Oh wow,
So it's quite recent. 1 month.
whoa! We should get this out. Maybe we've got a finger on the pulse of the world. Maybe this time is right for a reboot. Reboot.
But I think there might be spoilers.
Yeah, I think I'm going to leave it until the end. I'm going to go on in ignorance and assume everyone. I mean, now I know, but it's good that you've got a bit of knowledge because I would have carried on saying that it was made by a bunch of Canadians.
I forget why they went to Canada. Like they went there because I think they were the
Presumably that's where
people
they
that.
got the money from,
Yeah, they were
or
the
the
ones that
studio that would make
put
it.
it out. Yeah, and then
Mm.
yeah, that was just a case of them. It was like some guy saw it, liked it, said you've got this slot, make your show, fit it on this.
Yeah, because we're back in the early days of the TV, was the nightmare, wasn't it? I mean, it still sort of is, but like it was the whole thing about who just slot, and you have to get so many ratings, and
Yeah,
and if it doesn't do well, then we'll, and the whole thing where they cut seasons in half, and
But it managed like it did. I forget again. I should
I
look
think
this up.
there's 4 seasons.
There's 3 proper seasons,
Yeah.
and then the 4th they did kind of 2. Oh, is it 4 seasons and a movie? They did like 2 films that weren't very good.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But it was more that they just edited the episodes together.
Right.
But I can't remember if it's 4 in a film, the last season of films, or if it's 4 and then because it stopped because we were obviously in the UK, and it was on CEI TV, I think.
Yeah, it was.
And I do remember they just stopped.
Yeah.
Like I didn't watch. I think I didn't see the last season until piracy.
Do you own ReBoot? Or
Someone's put it on YouTube. I'll say that.
I mean, that's I watched it on YouTube, but I did look at because I think there is a DVD.
I
but
do.
It's really expensive.
I do own. Yes, it's Canadian. It's the only one that exists.
Oh, it's a
never
Canadian
released
DVD,
over here,
right?
so it's like a weird Canadian box set.
Yeah,
which has them all in, I think.
Okay.
So there's 3 seasons and then a 4th. So 4 seasons is that number.
Yes.
After the end of the 3rd season, 2 TV movies were produced.
Right.
And then I think they split those up.
I see.
Into episodes to make a 4th.
Right. So that's what's on YouTube then, presumably, because I think they've got 4 seasons on there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
And I think the first TV, like we're miles down the line, but I think the first one is all right, and then I think the last one's just a bit.
Is that when he's got a beard?
Yeah, we don't. That's when it gets. I don't want to talk about that.
Is that a spoiler?
It's not a spoiler. I just don't want to talk about it. Because if we're going to go through it, that's essentially, without saying too much, that's when I think it got really good because it did something that you wouldn't normally expect a series to do.
Oh, okay. Oh, look, I can picture him with a beard. That's the only thing.
Then I will add a spoiler.
No, don't spoil it. I'm going to say no more about the beard. I look forward to the beard reveal.
A character with a beard. Oh, see,
yes.
I think it's so good. I think what they did was so. But I was 12. So when I was 12, it was like the best thing that they did. But
now I'm like, maybe we should just do the whole reboot all in one go. No, I don't know. Let's carry on. I mean, not now, but like,
let's turn this off. Let's go back and.
Yeah, I'll just watch ReBoot. No, I think this is good. Like, I think we've covered episode 1 and the surrounding the landscape of 1994
and gaming
and my patchy memory of said gaming.
I think we just carry on with this and carry on with you remembering a game that I don't.
Yep. And then checking the year, finding out it came out way after. No. Yeah, we go from there. This episode of Noobscast was sponsored by my book, Noobs. Noobs is a middle grade adventure book about 3 kids who take on an evil AI at an esports tournament. There's a link to the book in the podcast description, so please check this out if you're interested.